Harlow. Dedication. To all those who have read these books thus far and have continued to support me with amazing critiques, ideas, and suggestions, with special recognition to Brenda Butler and my Aunt Becky. My friends and family are so amazing, and I could not be more proud of the connections and love I have been privileged to experience in my life. A special thank you to Patricia de Dios and Pure Divine Photos LLC for helping with the cover art concept and for loving and supporting me in this writing adventure I am embarking on. I also want to dedicate this book to a friend who has recently passed. J.R. You were as unique and individual as the world has ever been graced with, and I am proud that we had the opportunity to be friends. I, like many others, will miss you, my friend. David. Chapter 1. Aftermath. The air in the mortuary was heavy with the scent of antiseptic and the lingering weight of grief as Detective Harlow stood beside Ethan. They had just witnessed and taken part in Richard's violent end, a confrontation that had left them both shaken. Now, they were tasked with writing statements, recounting the harrowing events that had unfolded in the dimly lit room where Richard had met his fate. Patricia's hands trembled as she scribbled her account of the events, with her fingers aching as she pressed pen against paper. Her mind raced, replaying the moment she had confronted Richard, and the chaos that had ensued. She could still feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, the rush of fear and determination that had propelled her forward. "I can't believe it's over," she murmured, glancing at Ethan, who sat across from her, staring blankly at his screen. I can't believe he's dead," Ethan replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "It feels surreal." Patricia nodded, her heart heavy with a mix of relief and sorrow. Richard had been a monster, but he had also been a part of their lives, a dark shadow that loomed over them. Now that he was gone, the world felt strangely empty. As they continued to write their statements, they heard the sound of a gurney being wheeled in. Dread settled in Patricia's stomach as she turned to see the coroner's team from the neighboring county enter and remove Richard's body on a stretcher. The sight of the lifeless figure sent a chill down her spine. "Let's get this over with," one of the coroners said, his voice curt. They carefully placed Richard's head into another black body bag, the finality of the motion striking Patricia like a physical blow. She had spent so long feeling like she was in a game of cat and mouse with him, and now it was over just like that. As they zipped up the bag, Patricia could swear he was looking at her from inside the bag and felt a wave of emotions crashing over her. She had fought so hard to bring Richard to justice, but now that it was done, the victory felt hollow. She turned back to her statement, trying to focus, but the weight of what they had just experienced lingered in the air. 2 days later, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation as Patricia and Ethan stood at the shoreline of the lake, a place that had become a haunting backdrop to their lives. The morning sun gleamed on the water's surface, a deceptive calmness masking the horrors that lay beneath. They had gathered the necessary equipment to dredge the lake bed, hoping to uncover the truth about Denny once and for all. Patricia clutched the locket she had found earlier, the one that had belonged to her brother. It felt heavy in her palm, a tangible connection to the past that she had longed to hold. The engraved name, Denny, glimmered in the sunlight, a bittersweet reminder of the love and loss that had defined her life. "Are you ready for this?" Ethan asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. He stood beside her, his expression serious as he gazed out over the water. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready," she admitted, her gaze fixed on the lake. "But I need to know. I need to find him." The sound of machinery whirring to life broke the silence as the dredging equipment was lowered into the water. Patricia's heart raced, a mix of hope and dread swirling within her. What if they found Denny? What if they didn't? The uncertainty gnawed at her, but she pushed it aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. As the equipment began to sift through the murky depths, Patricia felt a sense of purpose wash over her. This was her chance to lay Denny to rest, to finally bring closure to a chapter that had haunted her for 2 decades. The thought of finding him, of bringing him home, filled her with determination. Moments stretched into what felt like hours as they waited, the tension palpable in the air. Then, suddenly, the machinery jolted, and the workers shouted in surprise. The water churned violently as something heavy was pulled from the depths. Patricia's heart leapt as she saw the outline of a large, rusted freezer emerge from the water, the surface slick with algae and debris. Hope surged within her, but it was quickly tempered by a sense of foreboding. Could this really be Denny? As the freezer was hoisted up onto the shore, Patricia stepped closer, holding the locket tightly in her hand. The moment felt surreal, as if the world had blurred around her. She had spent so many years dreaming of this moment, and now it was finally here. The workers pried open the freezer, and Denny's name echoed in Patricia's mind like a mantra. But as they swung the door open, her heart sank. The inside was dark, and the reality of what they might find loomed large. She felt Ethan's presence beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder, grounding her in the moment. "Patricia, wait," Ethan said, his voice low and filled with concern. "Are you sure you want to do this?" She nodded, steadying herself. "I have to know." As they peered inside, the air felt thick with dread. The contents were obscured by shadows, but the unmistakable scent of decay wafted out, a chilling reminder of the life that had been lost. Patricia's breath caught in her throat as she struggled to process what she was seeing. The workers began to sift through the contents, and as the light fell upon what lay inside, hope flickered within Patricia. And then, she saw it, a lifeless form, unrecognizable and shrouded in darkness. Patricia held the locket up, its weight heavy in her palm. "This is his," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. "I can feel it. This is Denny." But as she stood there, the crushing weight of reality began to settle in. 20 years in a freezer at the bottom of this lake, what had become of him? The thought was unbearable, a haunting reminder of the loss that had shaped her life. "Patricia," Ethan said softly, his voice breaking her reverie. "We need to be prepared. If this is him, it could take time to identify the remains." She nodded, but inside, a storm raged. The grief, the anger, the longing for closure, it all threatened to consume her. But she also knew that she had to remain strong, not just for herself, but for Denny, for the brother she had lost and the love that had endured through the years. As the workers began the process of carefully extracting the remains, Patricia felt a surge of determination. She would ensure that his story was told. She would not let his memory fade into obscurity, nor would she allow the darkness that had taken him to continue its reign. With the locket still clutched tightly in her hand, she vowed to honor Denny's life, no matter the cost. She was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that her fight for justice was far from over. Together with Ethan, they would confront the past and reclaim the future, one step at a time. As Patricia and Ethan walked back to the car, the weight of the moment hung heavily in the air. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow over the shoreline, but Patricia felt only the chill of uncertainty. Just then, she spotted Chief Andrews stepping out of his vehicle, his expression serious. "Detective," he called, striding toward them. "I wanted to be here to see how things were progressing. I also got a call from Deputy Ortega telling me that it looks like they found something, and it may be what we've all been hoping for and dreading at the same time." Patricia felt her stomach churn at the sight of him. It wasn't that she didn't appreciate his concern. On the contrary, his care for her in the aftermath of the last 20 years was a comfort. But facing the people who had been part of the search for Denny felt like a bitter reminder of the heartache she had endured. They had all done what they could with the knowledge and resources they had at the time, but it still seemed like too little, too late for her peace of mind. "Hey, Chief. Thank you, sir, but you didn't have to come out here on your day off," she replied, forcing a smile that felt strained. The chief gave her a knowing look, his eyes betraying that he saw right through her facade. "Yeah, right. Look, Detective Harlow, I understand that the possibility of finding Denny after all these years has to weigh heavy on your mind. Hell, you probably still hold a bit of resentment for your parents, the police, and everyone you feel should have been listening to you from the start. I know I would. It's only human to feel that way." He turned to Ethan, who stood quietly beside Patricia, his expression unreadable. "How are you doing, Ethan? I know you've been through a lot in a short period, and it can weigh pretty heavily on anyone's mind, let alone someone as young as you are." Ethan felt a knot of stress tighten in his chest, more for Patricia than for himself. He had witnessed her face a deadly situation, a nightmare that seemed impossible to survive, both physically and mentally. Not only had she survived, but she now seemed empowered to do what the police had failed to accomplish for 2 decades. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that the pressure would eventually crack her. He just didn't know what that breaking point would look like or if he wanted to be around when it happened. "Thanks, I'm holding up okay, Chief," he replied, his voice steady but lacking conviction. Chief Andrews looked disappointed, concern etched on his face. "Look, I know you've both been given the number for Declan Bynar, the county psychologist. I also know that neither of you has made any attempt to get a hold of him. That concerns me. Of course, there's no need for me to know what you discuss, but I need to know that you're both okay. I expect that he will report to me by the end of the week and confirm that you've both checked in. Now, Ethan, I can't force you, but Harlow, you will do no further work until you're cleared. It's for your own good." Patricia felt a surge of frustration mixed with exhaustion. "Chief, I appreciate your concern, but I can't just sit around while there's still work to be done. We're so close to finding Denny. And I understand that, but your mental well-being is paramount, Chief Andrews pressed, his tone firm but compassionate. You've faced a lot, and I don't want you to push yourself too hard. You need time to process everything. Patricia was about to respond when Ethan stepped in. I'll call the psychologist, Chief. I promise, he offered, wanting to ease the tension that was building. Chief Andrews nodded, though he still looked unconvinced. I'll hold you to that, both of you. Just remember, you're not alone in this. As the chief walked away, Patricia turned to Ethan, feeling the weight of the conversation settle heavily between them. I know he's trying to help, she said, her voice low, but it's hard. I just want to find Denny and bring him home. Ethan nodded, the dread of their situation hanging over him like a dark cloud. We will find him, Patricia. We have to stay focused. With renewed determination, they headed back to the car, but Patricia couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was far from over. The search for Denny had led them into the depths of the lake, into the unknown, and she steeled herself for whatever might lie ahead. As they drove from the lake, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The beauty of the sunset clashed with the heaviness in her heart. She clutched the locket tightly in her hand, a symbol of hope and a reminder of the love she had for Denny. As Patricia drove through the familiar streets of Oakwood, the weight of the recent discovery pressed heavily on her heart. The image of the freezer, and the possibility that it contained Denny's remains, haunted her thoughts. She glanced sideways at Ethan, who sat quietly in the passenger seat, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and anxiety. Are you sure you want to stay at the shelter tonight? Patricia asked, her voice gentle but tinged with concern. I can take you somewhere else if you'd prefer. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. No, it's fine. I'll be okay. I just need to lay low for a bit. Patricia nodded, but a knot tightened in her stomach. She had seen the fear in Ethan's eyes, the way he had flinched at shadows and glanced over his shoulder as if expecting someone to jump out at him. His worries about his stepfather, Sal, lingered in the air like a dark cloud. Have you seen him again? She asked carefully, knowing how much the thought of Sal terrified Ethan. No, Ethan replied, but his voice was shaky. But I keep seeing things. Shadows moving when they shouldn't be, someone hanging around corners. It's making me feel like I'm being watched. He looked out the window, the street lights casting fleeting glimmers across his face, illuminating the worry etched into his features. Patricia felt her heart ache for him. You know I'm here for you, right? If he shows up, I know, Ethan interrupted, turning to her with wide eyes. But if Sal finds me, he'll try to kill me. I'm not just being paranoid, Patricia. He's dangerous. The fear in his voice was palpable, and it sent a chill down her spine. I'll help you deal with him, Ethan, she promised, gripping the steering wheel tighter. We'll come up with a plan. But first, we need to focus on what's next, especially if the remains in that freezer are Denny's. Ethan nodded, but the weight of her words hung heavily between them. What will you do if it is him? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Patricia took a deep breath, her heart aching at the thought. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me wants to scream, to shake the world and make it understand the loss I've carried for so long. But I also want to honor him. I want to find a way to give him the peace he deserves. Ethan stared at her, a look of understanding dawning in his eyes. You have to be strong, Patricia. You've already been through so much. If it is him, you'll need to focus on finding closure, not just for you but for him too. I know, she replied, blinking back tears. But it's hard to think about what that means. After all these years, the thought of finally laying him to rest feels surreal. I just want to protect his memory. Ethan shifted in his seat, his expression thoughtful. And I want to protect you too. If Sal finds me, I don't want you to get hurt because of me. You've already done so much. Ethan, you're not a burden. You're my friend, and I care about you, Patricia reassured him, her voice steady. We'll face whatever comes next together. He looked at her, gratitude flickering in his eyes. Thanks, Patricia. I really appreciate it. I know I can be a lot to deal with, especially with everything happening. You're not a lot to deal with. You're worth it, she said firmly, her heart swelling with determination. We'll meet at the cafe in the morning to discuss a plan for Sal. I'll make sure you're safe. Okay, Ethan agreed, but his brow furrowed with concern. Just promise me you'll be careful. I don't want you caught off guard if he shows up. I promise, she said, her voice resolute. We'll figure this out, together. As they pulled up to the shelter, Patricia felt a mix of emotions: relief that Ethan would have a place to stay, but anxiety about what lay ahead. She parked the car and turned to him, her heart heavy. Remember, you can call me anytime, day or night. We're in this together. Ethan nodded, a grateful smile breaking through his tension. Thanks, Patricia, you're the best. As he stepped out of the car, Patricia watched him walk toward the entrance, a sense of unease settling in her stomach. The shadows of their past loomed large and the uncertainty of the future felt overwhelming. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. With the weight of Denny's potential discovery and the threat of Sal hanging over them, Patricia knew their fight was far from over. She would do whatever it took to protect his memory and ensure Ethan's safety, even as the darkness threatened to close in around them both.